Okay, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Well, the subject of this panel is political will, a subject which is near and dear to my heart. And this group, which represents a group of water conservancy and conservation districts across the state, will talk about their perspectives in terms of generating the political will, the feasibility, the permitting, everything that goes into a water project. You heard from Becky and Jacob about those aspects of the state water plan that speak to the measurable goal of developing 400,000 acre-feet of storage by 2050. A lot of that includes projects that are identified IPPs, and the state water plan also sets forth 5 principal ways for getting there, and they just talked about that. But to summarize, financial support for technical and practical innovations, prioritizing grants and loans for infrastructure of basin implementation plan, multi-purpose projects, conducting a series of lean events to create a more efficient permitting process. 4th, having relevant state agencies actively participate as cooperating agencies in federal permitting processes. And finally, where more than one state agency is involved, identifying a lead state agency and developing an MOU so that, as Becky said, everybody's singing off the same page. So we have had, obviously, a number of projects in Colorado that have been successfully developed. Each of these entities has successfully developed projects. Each of these entities has projects that are either actively in the permitting process or have plans for additional projects to meet needs that they have identified within their particular areas. And so they will discuss really what it takes to get those projects across the goal line, whether the actions that have been identified in the state water plan will help the IPPs move forward, and what the water community, particularly the Colorado Water Congress, needs to do to ensure that those actions will actually get implemented and those measurable goals of water storage will be met. I will let them introduce themselves and give a perspective of each of their districts. As I mentioned, each district was organized in whole or in part for project development and management. And then we'll dive into a series of questions. They've threatened that if I ask them hard questions, they're going to leave and hold an event across the street, but hopefully they won't be too hard. So I'll start with Mike and we'll just go across.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I'm Mike Applegate. I'm with the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District. I've been on the board of directors of the district since 1991, or as my older daughter likes to point out, I've been continuously waterboarded for 24 years. But you know, our district was the first water conservancy district that was created in the state under the Conservancy Act back in 1937, and we were built and authorized specifically to get a regional water project put in place, the Colorado Big Thompson project. We're in partnership with the Bureau of Reclamation. We're the operating and managing partner for the irrigation and municipal industrial component water delivery, and we've had that relationship ever since the district was created. We have a good track record, I think, of getting projects put in place. CBT was the first. Windy Gap was another one. We have the Southern Water Supply Project, which serves the southern part of our district, and then we have the Pleasant Valley Pipeline, which was an interconnect. But just to give a perspective, I mean, our district covers a wide area. We stretch from Fort Collins along the Front Range down to Boulder, out to the Greeley area, and then along the Platte River all the way to Nebraska. We've got right now probably about 895,000 people in our district boundaries and about 33 towns and cities, so very diverse group of people. You know, looking back when the project was first conceived, and you look at the political will that it took to get that first project off the ground, there were differing needs, differing times. A lot of the issues were still the same, though. It took a vote of the people, and at that time, the political will was over 90% of people voted to tax themselves. We're in the process now, as a lot of you know, of getting new projects put together. We have the Northern Integrated Supply Project, which realistically has been on the books, and we've been working on it since 1992. It's been a long road to hoe. And then we have the Windy Gap Firming Project, which is, we think, pretty close to going over the finish line. And that's a good example of keeping political will channeled. That political will that we talk about comes from our water users. Northern is an agency that we can help our water users, but they're the ones that are going to get projects done. And we will do whatever we can to keep that energy and that political will focused and moving forward with the agencies that are responsible for getting our projects in place. But that's really where it comes from. I'd just say, the success we're having comes from listening to the people that are putting the money up to build these projects. We have 15 towns and cities and water users for NISP. We meet with them almost on a weekly basis to hear what they have to say. We keep them in the loop, and we're going to listen to them to try and keep moving these projects forward. So consistency in our message to the permitting agencies requires consistency in our water users, and I would say in this day and age, it's been remarkable how united all of these differing towns and cities that have differing needs have held together, and they speak with a single voice, and that's really important in getting things together. Willingness to negotiate and get a solid agreement in place, that's been something else that is critical to make a project work. And I would just use an example, just yesterday here at this water conference, the MOU for the Grand Lake Clarity project for the Windy Gap Firming project was signed in a room next door here with the Bureau of Reclamation and all of the proponents, East Slope and West Slope, another piece of the puzzle. So I'll leave it at that right now so the rest of our guys can talk here.
Okay, I'm Dave Merritt with the Colorado River Water Conservation District, and I've been involved with the River District for 31 years now, first as staff, chief engineer, and then last 7 years as a board member representing Garfield County. The River District was formed out of the same series of acts in 1937 that created the Water Conservation Board and allowed water conservancy districts to come into place. They also had an additional obligation provided upon them just to come into existence, in which we have the only two of them up here who have that obligation and have fulfilled that obligation. That is the Southeast and Northern, and that they have to provide measures where they divert water out of the natural basin of the Colorado River system to protect future and present beneficiaries. And we have been the beneficiary of that. You may notice up here that I kind of have more than my share of water. I've got my own water, but I've got some other water here. And this water is stored. And I can use it later. I can share it with my table mates. It's kind of hard to get it to Mr. Fearn down there because he's two tables, two passes away from me. Mr. Lochhead seems to have more than his share of water too. This storage bucket that I have also appropriately was paid by somebody else. In this case, this storage bucket was paid for by the Platte River Recovery Implementation Program. which Mr. Applegate is very familiar with, and I think you participate in that quite a bit. But I think we need to recognize that yes, here on the West Slope, we do have more than our share of resources, and our buckets that we have used over there really we've been the beneficiary of having those paid for by others. The cooperation is necessary, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, stepping out of your zone to cooperate with folks from the Front Range. I also have had the honor to serve on the Glenwood Springs City Council for 8 years, 6 years of that as Mayor Pro Tem. And in that, Glenwood is fortunate in that we have our own water utility, and so we have to integrate land use and water management, because it's our responsibility, if we do have any new development, to have to be able to supply that. We have to know that we can't just expect someone else to supply that. We also, the West Slope is very dependent upon both a natural resource-based economy, which is not so strong right now, agricultural economy, and recreation economy. Our recreation economy is predicated really upon a strong Front Range economy. If we don't have folks able to come from the Front Range to recreate, we don't have the income base. Glenwood is fortunate. We are what's often called a one-tank trip. And so if we don't have folks able to drive over and willing to make the drive over, we don't have that economic base. There's been a lot of talk about, well, we should move people to where the water is as opposed to moving the water where the people are. In many cases, when you get down to actually making those decisions on a city council basis, there is not the political will among the local populace to see that kind of a significant increase. With the population projections of 5 million people over the next 20 plus years, the West Slope really can't accommodate that without significant impacts. And there's going to be significant impacts to the Front Range too as that moves along. Part of that, frankly, is the fact that it is in growth. It is our own children staying here, and it is ourselves. We aren't dying off earlier, and we're wanting to stay around longer. So we're going to see that growth. We need to find a way to deal with it. We need to find a way to work with our friends southeast, northern, Denver, and accommodate that growth. We've had excellent relationships built up over the past 20 years. We have been, in many cases, have pushed forward, and they have pushed forward too on those agreements. And we need to continue that. And I think the conceptual framework embodies that. There was a lot of uncomfortableness with that, but it's come out, and I applaud the Water Conservation Board. Jacob, he was sitting over there. I'm sure he's around someplace. He hasn't disappeared. Oh, there he is. He hasn't disappeared yet, in being able to move that forward. So I'm going to pass it on to my friends. You need some water over there? You're kind of a little bit short, are you?
I'll take some in a little bit.
You take some in a little? Okay.
I'm Gary Bostrom. I'm a director on the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District. I've been on the board for 5 years, and I've also just finished up a 36-year career with Colorado Springs Utilities, working primarily in the area of water resources, water supply development. So I appreciate being here today. Southeast District is in southeastern Colorado, of course. It has nine counties that it represents. The purpose, the function, the primary mission of the Southeast District is the managing district for entity for the Frying Pan, Arkansas project. The district holds the water rights and allocates the water and works with its partner, the Bureau of Reclamation, that actually does the day-to-day operation of the project. So that's the primary function. In addition to that, the Southeast District has been in several projects. I'll be talking about the Arkansas Valley Conduit, other projects as well, including Pueblo Reservoir or Pueblo Hydro partnership as well. So that is the makeup of Southeast. And focusing on Arkansas Valley Conduit, it is a treated water system to get water from Pueblo Reservoir to the counties east of Pueblo. There's about 40 communities to be served. It's about a 200-mile pipeline. It's one of the original components of the Fry Ark project. So it's been there a long time. A lot of planning has gone into that. So that's the Arkansas Valley Conduit. The other project I will be touching on as well, given my involvement with it over time, is the Southern Delivery Project, Southern Delivery System. It's a regional project. All the entities in SDS are members of the Southeast District or are within the Southeast District, and that water project delivers water from Pueblo Reservoir north into El Paso County to first to Pueblo West, but then on to Fountain Security and Colorado Springs. So just as far as preliminary comments, what characterizes both of these projects is lots of planning, SDS going back into the 80s, working on water rights, and so decades of planning, the same with AVC, and the political will, and I'll change the word from will to resolve, is just critical, both within the communities and thinking of Colorado Springs, having the resolve to build SDS, the Southeast District overall, the Lower Arkansas to build AVC, and there's continuity in that. I think one of the challenges is that as you, political leadership, it's not just resolve, but having the right people, the leaders that are elected to lead the effort is, from my perspective, is critical. You can have great staff, but you've got to have the political representatives working some of these regional issues, and just having continuity at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level, working those issues has been critical to make SDS successful, and will be critical to get AVC funded and get it under construction. Currently, there's design, preliminary design, it's been through NEPA with AVC, but it's not under construction, really being held up with financing. For Southern Delivery System, it is pretty well complete and is under construction as we speak, and should be delivering water this next year. So with that, I'll save more comments for later and turn it over to Steve.
Thank you. I'm Steve Fearn. I'm a director of the Southwestern Water Conservation District. I've been a director for about 22 years now, I think. District was created in 1941 by the state legislature for the purpose of really assisting people in the district to be able to develop water resources, to meet their needs, and to make sure that the valuable resource is conserved as part of that process. One project I guess we'll talk about, which is completed to a point, was the Animus Plata project. I think it's the only project that the Water Congress has actually endorsed over the years. It makes it kind of unique. The political will, I think, is a lot about perseverance as well as building relationships. We can go back and say that the idea of the Animus Plata project started about over 70 years ago. At that time, it was an irrigation project for the La Plata River, moving water from the Animus River to river basin to the La Plata River. It was authorized that way, and the Colorado River Storage Project, one of the main projects. It moved forward slowly. The district had to acquire the water right for the project in about 1940, or just after it was formed, and has maintained that water right as a conditional water right. The project has covered so many years, decades. Times change, values change. When the project was conceived, we didn't have an Endangered Species Act. We weren't particularly worried about settlement of and then water rights issues for the future. We were just focused on an irrigation project. Well, time moves forward, and I'm going to say around 1990, 1988, Congress passed the Colorado Ute Inland Water Rights Settlement. And that became then a key part of the project. Was a settlement with the Southern Ute Tribe and the Mountain Ute Tribe, which are in our district, of their water rights claims under the Winters Doctrine. And under the Winters Doctrine, they had priority, the water right in southwestern Colorado. So we already had a lot of water developed for our municipalities, towns, our farms, our ranches. All those water rights were junior. So we needed certainty on that. Excuse me. So time moves forward. We had an administration in the 1990s that wasn't particularly favorable to water development. We started groundbreaking. We did a groundbreaking early 90s, had to back off from that. And in the end, at this point, from what we built, we have a reservoir. It's about half the size of the original project. It's about 93,000 acre feet of active storage. Most of it belongs to the 2 Ute tribes. The state holds a piece of that, chunk in it. And there's some M&I water in that. But there is no irrigation component. In the 1990s, we had an administration that said, we don't want to build any more projects, basically. But we had the Indian water rights settlement to be done. So, in trying to work out these issues, we were fortunate to become part of what became the Romer-Shetler process, in which the state actually stepped in and negotiated with the Secretary of Interior, what will you support? And negotiated with the various parties, what can we make work and move forward, what can we actually get built? And so that, out of that process came the current configuration of the project as it's constructed. And it does provide for settlement of the Indian water rights issues, which is extremely important. It brings certainty to existing water users, provides some M&I water for the future. The water hasn't been used yet. I mean, the reservoir is full, and but that will start happening, I think, shortly. So the project, and also there's an endangered fish, basically, component fish, fish wildlife service. That's part of the the settlement that provides, again, the certainty for the use and development of existing water rights. It's part of the recovery project on the Colorado River, which we all participate in at some level. There is, as far as the district is concerned, the project hasn't been completed. We still feel there is an irrigation, although reduced, a component that should be developed, and we retain that portion of the water right that we feel is necessary to do that. So looking forward, we have that to complete in the future. We don't know when or how exactly, but that's moving forward. But one of the key things here, 2 key things I think were important in this project: support of the Water Congress, which provided support on a state level basis, and the willingness of the governor to come in and assist us in pulling a project together. Absolutely critical. And at some level, as in the water plan, we anticipate in developing this additional water, we're going to need that kind of political support through the state, through the legislature, through the administration, to make things happen. And I think we have to figure out how to make that work. And probably the Water Congress has a role in that. And something to think about, maybe a little different shift what we've done in the past, but I think that's going to be part of building the political will to make things happen.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all. It seems as though with these words of political will, political perseverance, political resolve, it's necessary at the end of the day to get something actually done. Over the last 15, 20 years in Colorado, and it's clearly reflected in the state water plan, we have developed a consensus-based model for negotiation. And Mike, you talked about the willingness to negotiate, the willingness to sit down across the table. We've got 2 or 3 projects in this state that I think reflect these values that Becky talked about in the state water plan of multi-purpose, value-based, consensus approach. You talked about the Windy Gap process, the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement. There are projects that seem to be teed up and ready to go with consensus from the West Slope, from the East Slope, from Grand County, Summit County, all the way across the board to move forward under this process, but for some reason aren't there yet. What will it take? And Steve, you talked about this support from political leaders, but what does it take to push these across the goal line?
You want to take a crack at it first, Mike?
I'll take the first shot. Well, looking at this, and I'll base this off of the state water plan that we have got before us now, that a lot of you have worked on very hard and put countless hours. We put countless millions of dollars into putting our thoughts down in this document. And as far as, I personally think that it's time now to say there's nothing in that document that is pre-decisional. I'm tired of hearing that word. I really want to see the state step up. I would ask the governor to take this document that he asked us to put together and take it on the road. He needs to talk to all of the federal agencies that get involved in our projects. This is going to be purely political, but hand it to them and say, this is our roadmap to the future. We really think this is a good idea. We like what's in here. You guys need to help us make it happen. It's really down to that point now. And I do think we need that political support. A lot of times, all the way through the permitting issues that we've been dealing with, particularly with NISP, a lot of times we've been asked by some of the federal agencies, where does the state stand on these things? And the answer we've gotten in the past is the state can't take a position yet because they need to see what the outcome of the federal documents are, what the studies. I think we're past that. I think we really need to get some leadership here to stand up and say, this is a good idea. Let's start doing things and get to doing. That personal opinion.
From West Slope perspective, I never thought I'd be in a situation where I felt sorry for Denver and Northern.
Let me write that.
But I do. I feel that we are long past the decision process on both Moffett and Windy Gap. I think that the governor needs to make a a statement. Are you going to support it, or are you going to not support it at this point? You know, the issue of pre-decisional, Mike, I think is a red herring. When you're in a political leadership position, you are not an agency making a determination. You're not the Corps making a 404. You're not the Bureau of Reclamation making a carriage contract. You are the governor of the state of Colorado, and as a state, we've come forward. We have done an enormous amount of work on those projects, and I think that we need to move forward with them.
With SDS and AVC, we have been able to address many of the issues with agreements, with regional agreements, with River District, with folks throughout the region, and that really set us up for success moving forward. So if that's not possible, if you can't get the issues resolved through the agreement process throughout permitting, I defer to these guys and I agree with them. I think to the extent the state can step in and provide that political leadership. Again, I've seen the value of political leadership at the local and county level in getting projects done. I believe that same approach can work at the state level of having the governor and the state moving some of these projects forward.
I'll make one comment about the water plan and developing the water plan. One of the values that I see in it is the conversations that have happened during the time it's been developed among the roundtables, the IBCC, conversations with the other agencies. We need to realize that we are all part of this state. And although some of these projects have nothing to do with southwestern Colorado, 9 counties, we're part of the state. They're important to us. They're important in the development and the quality of life in our state. And that's one reason I think we may need to shift our focus a little bit in working with each other and supporting each other in projects. We don't have to have a direct dog in a fight, but it's still important to us. So I think that's part of building the political will across the state to support this sort of thing. And I think we help build the political will, support. We want the governor to help us. We want the legislature to help us. We need to help them to build this political support for them to help us in the way we want them to help us.
It seems as though part of the theory behind the process that resulted in the state water plan with basin roundtables and the IBCC was this idea that grassroots development of ideas would reach consensus, and out of that would emerge direction. You all are talking about kind of leadership at the top. What's the role of the basin roundtables and the basin implementation plans, both in these IPPs that should move forward, as well as the development of other ways to meet the water supply gap that we face in Colorado?
I'll go ahead and lead off.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go forward.
You know, public process, stakeholder process is critical with any kind of project you're building, whether it's a pump station in a neighborhood or if it's the Southern Delivery System or the Arkansas Valley Conduit. So it's very important, the inclusive process, and involving folks understanding the whole concept of assessing the situation. And so I really see roundtable, the basin implementation planning process being a step in that direction. It really has that potential. Will it address all the issues? Will it remove all of the obstacles? Well, hopefully it'll remove a lot of them, but maybe not all of them. So it's certainly a step in the right direction of saying you need to involve folks. Doesn't mean you'll always agree, but you really seek to inform them and get their consent if at all possible. But again, it doesn't always happen, but you can certainly move ahead with that approach.
I'll take a crack. I think the roundtables have been very effective in getting discussion going among the basin interests. In the case of the Colorado Basin Roundtable, we've got very good discussions from Grand Lake to Grand Junction. I'm not sure that the connection has been made up to the IBCC as well as it could be. I think, folks are still, we are 10 years, past Russ George's great vision of being able to develop a interbasin compact, such as, the great steps that were taken in 22 with the Colorado River Basin Compact, and in 48 with the Upper Basin Compact, dividing up. We haven't reached that point. We're still, in many cases, internally focused and not as much, intra-basin focused as we could be. There's been great discussions, but we still have a way to go, and I think we need to move forward with that. And sometimes you just need to make a decision, move forward.
And I would say, in the years I spent on the South Platte Basin Roundtable, one of the true values of those roundtables was just getting to know your neighbors and understanding where people were coming from. And when you sit and talk to somebody for many meetings, it really helps build those relationships. And one of the things I would say, looking out at all of you, I see the water leaders of the state of Colorado. And, we were talking about, we want the governor to support it, but I also would challenge each of you. We've got a water plan. We can't declare victory and go home now. We still have a long ways to go, like Dave was saying. We need to keep that plan in front of our local political leaders and continue to reinforce with them that we want this to happen, and charge them that they need to help us make this happen as well. And that's going to fall on your shoulders as well. So that's a challenge for all of us.
I'll comment on Southwest Basin Roundtable. We have Southwest Colorado, 9 different rivers that flow out of the state. I think that's about half the rivers in the state that flow outside, across the border. Each of those drainages historically has kind of been a different community. And these folks haven't necessarily been friends. One of the values of the roundtable have been for these people to come together and learn about each other and learn they really do have common interests. And I think that's been very, very helpful in Southwest Colorado in defining the needs and how to move ahead. And taking it one step forward, we have periodically convened a meeting of the 4 roundtables in Western Colorado so that we begin to learn about our shared interests and our shared needs and how better to work together.